Hi, hello, and welcome to Five Star Conversations. Housing isn't just about property, it's about stability, safety, and the long term health of a community. I have a very special guest today, and before I introduce him, I do want to make sure that I invite you to an event on February 4th. It's launching on February 4th, 2026, and it is called 1 Million Cups. Okay? I want to invite you all there because this is going to be, let me show you here. It's at Medical Center of the Americas. It's for entrepreneurs to come and tell their story and to give feedback to other entrepreneurs. This is a weekly Wednesday event. The people that attend these events are high-level entrepreneurs, whether they're in ideation stage or some people are a little bit further along in their business and maybe they're pivoting or starting a new product line. The whole point is to encourage more entrepreneurship in El Paso, Texas. And I have been invited to be a event organizer for 1 Million Cups. So you will see me there a very lot. And again, that's going to be every Wednesday, launching on February 4th, 2026. It's from 9 to 10 a.m. It's absolutely free to attend. And hey, when you can get free, when you can be at the Medical Center of the Americas, which is a space that invests in startup technology for the medical field and a plethora of other things, when you can be in these atmospheres, it really changes the way in which you're able to grow. So I wanted to make sure that I invited you to the 1 Million Cups. And now, let's see here. But let's get back to the conversation today, which I am super duper excited about. So we have with us, as you can see down here on the ticker, we have with us Michael Clark, a realtor, okay? And he's a local realtor. You're going to love to hear from him, okay? Now, this space is where we spotlight the people shaping health, healing, leadership, and connection across the borderland. So you may be wondering, what does a realtor have to do with this? Well, today's conversation is especially important for homeowners, families, and anyone paying attention to how growth decisions are being made in El Paso, because it does have to do with our resources and our land resources. And our land is our health and our wealth as much as anything else is. So I'm joined by Michael J. Clark III, an El Paso realtor who serves military families and investors, and who recently showed up at a commissioner's court to voice concerns on behalf of homeowners regarding the proposed AI data center and its potential impact on our neighborhoods. This conversation is not about politics, okay? Let me say that right there. This is about our community and our future. It's about people, accountability, and making sure community voices are a part of the decisions that shape our future. And I'm hoping that from this conversation, you will be inspired to get involved, just like Mr. Mike Clark is. All right, so without further ado, let's bring him on. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Michelle. Can you see me?
Yes, we can. Can you see? Can you see yourself?
Yes.
Hold on. Okay, perfect. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I am incredibly honored that that we were able to connect. We've been connected on LinkedIn, and I always like to share with people how I meet people, because I think it shows the power of connection through social media. But it's great to be connected with people on social media, but the real connection, the real opportunity comes when we're out in the community. So when I went to the commissioner's court last Monday, I saw you, and you were sitting at the table sharing your concerns about the AI data center. And then now you're in your car because you just left a meeting with the El Paso Water. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you've been living under a rock in El Paso, just in case you didn't know, there were some water lines that burst over in the northeast side, I believe. And I'll let Mike talk a little bit more about that, since he's, he understands what's going on. And so, Mike, thank you so much for being here. So let's start with this. What motivated you to step forward and speak at Commissioner's Court on behalf of homeowners? And then I don't know if you spoke today, but what led you to go to today's conversation with the El Paso Water?
No, absolutely. Thank you again, Michelle, for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. And yes, what brought me out to The commissioner court was simply, my voice needed to be heard. As a realtor, I know a lot of us get caught up in just, selling and buying houses and selling houses and representing buyers and sellers. However, there's a lot more that goes to it. One thing about me specifically is I want to be involved with my community. I want to be able to represent you and also let you know what's going on when it comes to future developments, issues overall when it comes to utilities, property taxes. I just want to be a resource that a lot of people can use. I always go back to when I was just buying my first house and how nervous I felt. And you don't know what you don't know. So I'm not saying anything bad on my previous agents. It's just I know overall I would have loved a subject matter expert that knew about the city a little bit more. So that's what I'm trying to do. So going back to your original question, there was a need for a guideline or some sort of rules and some sort of rules when it comes to governing the data centers that are coming. One of the data centers is, of course, Meta. Meta's in the first stage of being built. There's supposed to be 3 different stages overall. And, one thing that's concerning, of course, is we're kind of doing this after the fact. We should always think about the impact of what something has with the community. If we don't have the information to kind of address that impact, we should, of course, look out of the city and try to find some sort of consulting firm or, find some subject matter expert that can really advise our city leaders. So that's one of the reasons why I spoke up. I was happy that the representative that actually spoke about it and brought it up. It was great. Once again, though, that's just becoming a habit that I just don't like. So that's why I love to speak up, let my voice be heard, and, make it a point that, hey, we voted you guys in. This is what we're expecting moving forward.
That's incredible, and thank you for sharing that experience. And yes, Commissioner Jackie Butler is the one who brought. She's the one who brought, the conversation that, hey, we need to have an AI data center best practices guide. And then I believe Commissioner Stout, if I believe I'm saying his name right, I could be wrong.
Yes, that's him.
Okay. Commissioner Stout, he said, not just for data centers, he said for all development, we need to have a best practices guide because all of this looks great. And there are a certain amount of people that are going to benefit from these things. But, mainly the construction people, I think, you know what I'm saying? And we talked about that a little bit before the call. It's like the developers, the construction people, that's going to be great for them. They'll be able to bank it. But and it's interesting because at that, we were talking about this too, at the meeting that we were at last Monday, there was an older gentleman that was there and he was talking on behalf of people. I want to say it was on the Northeast is where he was focused, wasn't it?
Yep.
And that's interesting. I want everybody watching to really think about that because here this man was like, he saw the writing on the wall. If he saw the writing on the wall and there was already issues happening, I have to believe that perhaps this didn't need to happen, and so what are we going to do about it? So I think that, hearing from you and getting to hear you speak, and then I didn't get to speak to you there, but then you reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, just wanted to let you know that I saw you there. And that was me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that, because I felt like you looked familiar, but I didn't realize that. So that's also, I want people to know the power of social media is a powerful tool to speak to people. And everybody, or not want to say everyone, but a lot of people that are on social media and even content creators are looking for that big payday, the viral hit, to be those types of creators. But why don't we use these tools to connect each other and to actually do some real good in the community? I think that can really be helpful. Okay. And so now, as far as from your perspective, and, to the homeowners and neighborhoods or people that are actually looking to buy a home, how do large scale developments like data centers potentially affect homeowners and neighborhoods?
Space is the biggest thing. One of the key points that were taken from the county commissioner's court was, what does the data center need? They need a lot of real estate, land to build. So with that comes infrastructure. However, these data centers may be only employing 20, 30, 40 people overall. A lot of these jobs are specific, are super tech heavy or super, um, you know, it's not a normal minimum wage job. So you have to be an expert in this field. So overall, it just takes up a lot of space. So with that being said, there's not a lot of development overall in that area when it comes to building homes. A great example is out in the Horizon area. There's a lot of factories being built. However, when it comes to the actual building of the homes, a lot of this stuff wasn't built already. So we're talking about utility districts. We have what's called a MUD, a municipal utility district, and basically, utilities haven't made it that far. It haven't made it all the way out to Horizon. So to build that, to connect the water, connect the bridges between all of our utilities, they have to build these districts. That is an
Okay.
extra fee on your property taxes. So you're paying for that entity for that service. And a lot of people don't know that when they move out to Horizon. They just
See,
assume.
that's crazy to me. Like, why isn't the company paying that?
And that's my point. As a realtor, I have a different perspective versus everyone else. My main thing is that it's okay to develop, but if you need those services, you need those resources, you have to build that. That has to be part of it. And if you need us to offset it as a city, that's fine as well. But how are we getting recouped back as a city?
That's right.
So that's my mindset when I look at these developments coming in. I'm all for the developers, but if they don't have a plan or they're just trying to save money to build, then I don't know if that's the best developer that should be in the city.
I gotta agree with that because I mean, we just keep losing money, and we see the developers, which again, I'm all about developing too. Like, why not? Yes, develop our city, but it feels super unfair that it's really hard for people to find a good job here. They say that the wages here we already are supposed to, part of the reason that companies want to build here is because our workforce is supposed to be so much cheaper and the cost of living is cheaper.
Yeah.
But it's like, the more that we add these things, the more that the everyday El Pasoan is paying, but we're not seeing an increase in jobs. We're not seeing an increase in our our income, and the cost of living, a raise in income is not necessarily even happening. But when it is, it shouldn't be just to cover us barely making it when so many people can make money. I think that that's unfair.
No,
So yeah, so that is a concern. And you were just at the El Paso water conversation. Is there anything that stood out to you that they were talking about that you feel like people should hear?
yes, there was two main points that everybody wanted to address. It was at the Public Service Board. So you have El Paso Water, which is ran by the city, it's financed by the city. So the city taxpayers, everybody puts into this. So it's still a public utility, one of the last ones. But we have a Public Service Board that manages it. So they're making the decisions when it comes to rate increases, when it comes to infrastructure, all those great things. They're the ones coming up with those ideas. And Mayor Johnson is actually on that board as well.
Okay.
And one of the two pieces that really hit home is one, the main water break that happened out on the Northeast. It was a 43-inch water main that broke. We actually found out that this particular water main was at least 45 years old. They switched from a different model. So they used to have a model where it was basically an age-based system. So they would keep the ages of all the water pipes throughout the city, and they would just repair it as needed. But one of the things the CEO was saying was, we're trying to save money. So now we're going to more of a condition base. So we're going off the condition of these pipes. So if it's still running after 50 years, 60 years, we're going to keep it in line. But what was so unique about this particular water line is that it's not, it wasn't done with it wasn't done to today's standards. Since it was so old, it was previous standards where we're talking about, I don't know, 1920s. I don't know when it was actually originally put in, but this particular water main, normally every 20, 30 feet, you would have a shut off valve, or you have a couple where you can kind of, if something breaks, you can kind of easily repair it. This one actually became like a distribution center kind of out on the northeast. So the water's coming through, but it's funneling water to all these different places in the northeast.
Oh, wow. What? So
Yeah,
it had a heavy load
it had a
and
heavy load.
responsibility.
Exactly, and no one really knew about this. So they're discovering this. What they had to do was approve an emergency contract, emergency bid to get the repairs done, and that's what they approved today. And then the second main issue, of course, was the rate, the water rate. One of the reasons to justify it, of course, is capital improvements. They want to continue to build, new infrastructure that keeps up with the high demand. One citizen came up and said, well, I don't understand, I don't see El Paso growing. And I would challenge a lot of locals to just come out their neighborhoods for a little bit, travel to Horizon, travel to the east side, travel to the far northeast. I mean, there is a high demand. There's a lot of people coming in. And I would also say this, there are homes $500,000 or more, not even like a handful anymore, like multiple homes, $500,000 or more. And like you said earlier, we're living on a fixed income as locals, but that means someone else is coming in. Someone else is coming into El Paso and creating that demand. So, yeah, this meeting was very, very important today.
Do you feel like it was a productive meeting?
I don't feel like it was a productive meeting. I really don't. It was, and I only say that because it could have been more organized. I mean, I've been to the city council meetings. I've been to the county court, with yourself as well. And it's ran a little smoother. You have the agenda, you have everybody following it, you have public comment. But on this particular public comment, if you had an issue, you had to be there in person. There was no calling over the phone. There was no Zoom. You had to be there in person. You had to sign up in person, which makes it a lot, makes it difficult. We were
It
talking
does.
earlier. Everybody's busy right now. I wish
Yeah.
people could take the time, but everyone's busy. So it made it that much more difficult at the end of the day to want to be there. And then I would say this too, you know,
How many
I
people? I'm sorry, not. I want to hear
no
what
no
you're
go ahead.
saying, but I just had a quick question of how many people were there. Would you say?
So it had to be at least 30 to 40, and we were in a small room, and this is usually, I guess, the original room they always use conference room, but it was double. So they had to use the waiting area plus the actual conference room, so people were in two sides. That was a difficult part too, because you had a young lady that was sitting out in the waiting room, name was being called, but she didn't move quick enough, and they were going to move to the next public comment. So it was just, I don't think they were used to that type of traffic.
Right. Where exactly was it?
This was right by the mall, right? It's literally across the street from the mall. There's a lot of construction going on. It's right by
From Cielo Vista, or?
yes, by Syllabus.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. So there. Okay. So people came, and there were a lot of people, which sounds like they're not used to having. Um, but these are things that we need to change, and we'd like to see change. That's why we're talking about this here today, because what happens in El Paso affects everybody. It affects us all, so even if we don't live on the northeast side, we get to realize that what happens is affecting us all, and that we need to be more vocal so that people are more mindful. Because the truth be told, if our elected officials don't know that these are things we're concerned about, besides Facebook trolling, then they're not gonna. They may think they're doing a great job. I'm just being real.
No, that is real. This increase may seem super small. It may seem like $1 increase, $1.50 increase. However, it's a lot to some people. There's different levels of water usage. We have
It's a
level
lot to
1,
me.
2, 3. Yeah.
Shoot.
But what they basically were saying is that, hey, our water consumption is going down as residents, of course, but they still want to raise something up, because at the end of the day, you still have industrial, you have all of these warehouses, you have the meta center. That's gonna be needed a lot of water. It's gonna need a lot of water. So that was one of the main concerns at the end of the day. Just like you said, it may be a small increase, but what one citizen challenged that entire board to do was go down to the northeast, walk the streets, talk to the citizens in person and find out, because this young lady says she walked door to door and not one person agreed with this rate increase.
Wow. Oh, wow. Wow. And so as a realtor, what let me see, do you believe that housing stability, as we're talking about, because I mean ultimately that's what this comes down to as well, is housing stability, because if you keep increasing rates, or if you have a big family and they can't access clean water and things like that, then that's instability of housing.
Absolutely.
um, do you consider this to be a community health issue as much as it is a real estate issue? Or how do you look at, do you see it as a health and well-being in addition to a financial issue? Or how do you look at this situation?
Both. I look at it both ways. A health issue because water is a necessity. Everyone needs water to live. That was one of the main points that was brought up. Is that, listen, you may be, the way the water company said it was, we have so many level one users where they're not consuming a lot of water, that to be celebrated. But it's not to be celebrated, because if you talk to those level one users that don't use a lot of water, they're doing it for a couple of reasons: to save money. That's the biggest reason I can tell you.
Mm.
So they're going without taking showers, they're going without drinking water, they're going what they're doing whatever they can do to really conserve as much water as possible, save money on their bill, to the point that it's dealing with their health and welfare at this point. Like, um,
Is that what they were saying at the meeting, or where have you heard that's what people were saying?
that's what they're saying at the meeting. Like, like I said, level one users, you can only use so much water before your bill is now pushing to level two, and you get a small.
Oh, see,
Yes.
okay,
So a
okay,
lot of people are on
wow,
fixed incomes. They're on fixed incomes. So even the
yeah,
smallest adjustment, the smallest increase is going to blow, whatever money you have left.
yeah.
So that's a total issue. And then when it comes financially, it's just really a burden. I give you a great example. Even a house that I just did an open house on, one of the main concerns I got from one of my clients was, listen, I love the house, but I'm gonna need 6 months of utility bills to kind of average out the cost. So that's on the front of people's mind. Like, they want to know the
Okay,
overall.
they want you as a realtor. They're not just asking for the price of the house. They need to know, okay, yeah, this sounds good, but is there a catch?
Exactly.
And how did that? What I mean, I don't know if you know how you feel about responding, but in a situation like that, how are you seeing that play out? Once you do that kind of investigating.
So I'm honest with them. I said, I'm gonna get with the listing agent. I'll find out if I can get those bills. But it's on the seller to want to provide that. They don't have to. I don't know if there's an opportunity where you can actually call the utility district. They may give you some of that information, but they may not. But like I said,
Mm,
what I enjoy doing as a realtor is making sure, if I'm hosting an open house, I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you all the information, not just the sales price. I'm telling you the
mm-hmm.
taxes, I'm showing you the breakdown of the taxes. I'm letting you know if you're in a mud, if you're in an HOA, because all of this stuff means something. And I hate for someone to get in the house and say, Mike, you got me in this house, but you didn't tell me about these costs. That's a big thing going on
Mm.
in Paso. People are in HOAs, they didn't know they were in HOAs. People are in muds, they didn't know they were in muds. So, you got to ask those questions. You have to have a knowledgeable realtor to do that.
I'm glad that you said that, because I would love to for you to break some of those things down. But can you, for me, also break down what is in? I know you spoke on the mud and then the HOA. There's like annual fees that come with this, and what are the benefits of being in a mud or HOA, or the challenges in being a part of those?
So the HOAs it's like a set of rules. Basically, it's a community that you're in. So a subdivision, basically everybody's agreed to these particular terms where we're going to maintain our grass. We're not going to paint our houses a certain thing color. We're gonna really maintain everybody's market value of their home, and that's usually essentially what it is. But HOAs are starting to get a bad rep, just for the simple fact that you may have people on those particular boards that are super strict, not even to the point where, hey, you might have made a mistake, but the HOA is going to enforce it. So if you forget to take your trash cans out and put them back, you might get fined for it. If you forget that, hey, you have a visitor coming and they park on the street for a little too long, they may get fined for it depending on the rules. And that's,
Mm.
yeah, and that
Well,
should be
and
annual.
this is a like a basically like a neighborhood govern. Now I've heard of HOAs before, so but I'm thinking for people that may not have, that may be thinking of buying a home, these are things to be considering. So the HOA is kind of like a neighborhood governing body.
Yes, yes, a homeowners association is what it is essentially. So you got homeowners that are in it. I don't know if there's anybody outside of the homeownership, that lives in that community, but majority of them are all homeowners. They get together, they have meetings, same like the city, all of them. But they're really enforcing rules within. So there's actual fees for it. So you'll get assessed once a year, and if you want to break it up and pay it how you want to pay it, you can. But
Mm-hmm.
you're ranging anywhere from $50 all the way up to I've seen some like $5,000 or $6,000.
Woo!
So it just depends where you live.
When they find these people or whatnot, what do they do with the money? Do you know?
It goes back to the community. So it's supposed to be like a small little city neighborhood, basically. So when we need new parts, when we need to do things with maybe security, maybe we want security, maybe we want to be a fenced-in community. All of that stuff is done.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. And then you mentioned mud. Is that something different or just a different jurisdiction?
Yes, that's a great question. MUDs are different. Those are what's called municipal utility districts. So you don't really have a say in it. You just need to know where you lie in that district. If you lie in a MUD district, you're automatically going to be paying for this. It's not an expense that you're going to see on your mortgage by itself. It's not even hidden, but it's in your property tax breakdown. You have all these entities that you have to pay. You have the school district, you got the hospitals, but you also have what's called municipal utility districts. All that's there. And normally, when you see new development and there's nothing there, someone has to pay for the infrastructure. So it's
Yeah.
either the developers or it's going to be the homeowners. And in
Yeah.
this case, it's the homeowners.
It sounds like most times it is, is from what I'm hearing, is at least around here. I'm glad that we're having this conversation too, because I'm an older woman. I know I look like a spring chicken, everybody, but
You look good. You
I'm an
look
older
good.
woman, and I've never owned my own home before. I Let me kind of rephrase that. I have been blessed and privileged enough to have had a home passed down to me from my father. So I did have that, and I did pay property taxes on it every year. But if I'm being honest, I don't think that there was a HOA or anything where this was in Kentucky. But for all I know, there could have been, because I didn't pay attention to the bill. I'm just being honest, because I just wasn't aware. But now that I'm older, and now that I, made it through the storm of life, and I'm not healthy, wealthier, and wise, now I'm like, okay, these are great things for me to begin to understand. And the reason I'm talking about that and putting it like this, Mike, is because there's a lot of people my age who are in the same similar boat. You know what I mean? Who may not have owned a home yet, and maybe they've rented their whole their whole adult life, and so they kind of tune out when these conversations come. But I want to implore them and encourage them to let's start getting involved, because I want to say, I don't plan on renting the rest of my whole life. I do want to own my own home. It's okay to get educated later. It's just let's go ahead and start getting educated, because a lot of people are probably paying a lot in rent if they just got their money right and they got financially literate. Perhaps they could start making the move to actually own a home. So that being said, how familiar are you with the trends in terms of, the baby boomers, or whoever, the older folks that are now starting to transition? They say it's going to be a big wave. Are we starting to see some of that, and are we starting to see more properties being available, or are we still in a supply crisis?
No, that's a great question. I'm absolutely keeping in tune with the baby boomers. You do have a lot of retirement age individuals moving into retirement homes. So what does that happen? What happens with the home? It usually gets left to, the daughter, someone in the family. However, the issue is, of course, if there's no living will, if someone passes away beforehand, it becomes difficult to find out who's supposed to manage that home, manage the
Mm.
finance. That's another big issue. So overall, I mean, there's a high demand of homes that are being sold and on the market, but I can give you a better answer. I deal with a lot of foreclosed properties. I go to the foreclosure
Hmm.
auction first Tuesday of every month out at the county coliseum. And what
Okay.
I yep, and when I go through the list, you'll see what's called reverse mortgages.
I
We
have
all
heard of
know,
those.
and see, what we all know is we're supposed to be saving for retirement at some age. However, at the end of the day, your home may be your only asset, and that's what's happening. I mean, when you get a reverse mortgage, you're talking about, you have, not that you haven't done anything to save up for retirement, but you're now utilizing your home. You're not going to leave your home to anyone. You're doing a reverse mortgage. You're taking the equity out, and you're eventually going to give it to someone else. You're going to give it to that bank, whoever gave you the money.
Oh, interesting. Or I have just a little sidebar, nosy question about that. Are are we finding family members shocked that this is what's going on? There, are we
Yes,
finding are we
it,
finding people that think they're going to be inheriting these things and realizing, oh, I know the bank owns it.
that's so far that's what's happening. I've had a couple stories, couple instances where I hear people saying, "Hey, a home was left. Grandma left it to me. I've been living in the house 10, 15 years. However, grandma or grandfather didn't leave a will, so now you have to share it among all of the spouses. I mean, all of the siblings.
Yeah, and the
You know,
siblings don't have no stake. They don't have no skin in the game. They'll take what's
they're
theirs.
going to take what's theirs. So, I'm not an estate planner. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not any of that. But what I would
Yeah,
say is, you got to have those conversations. I think it goes back to, your podcast and what you do. We're afraid to have those conversations because it may feel
yeah.
unhealthy. It may be not the norm to talk about life and death, but you want to make sure you're having those conversations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so I didn't mean to get you off track though, because I thank you for saying that, because you're right. These are all conversations we need to have. And, I know that I recognize that talking about these things aren't necessarily popular, may not be popular with some of my colleagues, but I care about them, and I want to believe that they care about the people too, and that maybe just people aren't talking about these things enough to really inspire them. And I get it. Like, we all can kind of get caught up in our day to day, and we're just getting by, and we all have our personal issues, but nothing's going to change if we don't do something different. So that's why much respect to you, because I know that you're talking about things that may not be very popular with your colleagues,
Yes,
with some of
yes.
your colleagues, but somebody has to be the voice of the people. And so I highly respect and honor you for taking the time to come and share some of these things. But I know you were talking about being at the what is
The
it called? The
auction,
foreclosure?
foreclosure
The
auction.
auction. Yes. Yeah. Let us, I'd love to hear what you were saying about that.
So yes, with the foreclosure auction, as a realtor, I don't do anything when it comes to the foreclosure auction. I've been attending them for the last 2, 3 years. I've participated where I'm from, originally from in South Bend, Indiana. I've bought and sold, but in El Paso, I literally go just to view it, just to find out what's going on, the trends, and understand the investors. So I've been in this room multiple times, and one thing El Paso says, there's not a lot of investors in El Paso. There's a ton of investors in El Paso. There's a lot of
Mm,
investors in El Paso. And I would also say is, to prepare to go to a foreclosure auction as a realtor, what I do is I grab the list from the main trustee that's there. I get a list of
mm-hmm,
everything, and now I'm researching each property. And
mm-hmm,
one thing that stands out to me is that there is a lot of equity in someone's home. I give you a great example. You have a home, you bought it for 100,000, you've had it for 10 years. You're almost getting ready to pay it off, but you fall on hard times, you have issues, you get liens put in your house for whatever reason.
mm,
But now it goes to the foreclosure auction. So now someone is buying your equity. So basically your home is worth, you paid 100,000, you might have 98,000 left to go, but now your home's getting foreclosed on and your home's now worth 300. That equity of what you could have got from selling it before it went to the auction, you could have kept that. You could have kept that 200,000. But a lot of people,
Oh,
what they do is they get so frantic and scared and don't want to have the conversation, and they ignore it, and they just let them go. They let them go, and then so now someone else
even
is.
if they're still alive, a lot of
Yeah, they're
times when
still
they get
alive.
foreclosed on.
Yeah, they're still alive. No, they're still alive. They're upset. It's kind of like a mean. Um, it's kind of like being evicted. But this is on the
Oh
homeowner side.
yeah, yeah.
So
But
that's
as
the
a
feeling.
homeowner,
Yeah, that's the feeling you have. You're so upset. You're so prideful. You don't want to talk to nobody. You want to let nobody know about it, and so you don't.
mm,
So you don't want to talk to anybody. But I would always say it's free to pick up a phone. Yeah,
it sure is. It sure is, Mike.
Yep. Some things cost
No,
money, but pick up the phone, talk to a lawyer, talk to a real estate agent. See what information you can get to at least get you a starting point.
please, please highlight. Let's highlight what you just said, because that is important, and I want people to know how can you help someone in that situation, because let's just face it, if I'm facing a situation like that, and if I'm in a home and I'm facing foreclosure and I'm embarrassed, I'm kind of concerned to talk to somebody about it, and I have been watching this podcast and hearing you, and you are involved in the community. You care about what's going on. Like, I'm gonna feel a little bit more confident and comfortable talking to you about the situation, so that I could get some answers. Because I feel like you will be honest with them, no matter what their situation is, and tell them what they're looking at. And B, then I feel like you probably have a network of also other upstanding people that can at least support them in mitigating the tragedy that might be losing your home. But what you just said is, I've never heard anybody say that before, to be honest. I haven't. So can you please just run that back, and let's start from the beginning. Somebody, what is, okay, this is a great question. At what point should somebody contact you if they are facing foreclosure?
I would say the best time is immediately when you feel the sense that this is becoming overwhelming. The moment you feel like now you're figuring out, am I going to pay my water bill? Am I going to pay this? Am I going to pay my mortgage? I would say that's the best time, because it's early. It's still early because you have options. You don't necessarily need to sell the house. That's one thing about me. I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that we need to sell your house and put it on the market. Like you said, I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe we just need to get you connected to some community resources. Maybe we need to contact you and get you with the utility company and figure out how much money can be offset because you're going through a connection, a reconnection fee or something like that. It may not be a huge issue. I would also say what I've seen on the foreclosure auction is you'll see what's called liens put on your home.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who has a home, if you have someone come do work on your house, if you have the city pick up trash and that you weren't told that they were coming, is because you didn't do something, whether you didn't cut your weeds and the city had to come out and cut your weeds, or your trash is piling up and now they got the trash people out collecting your trash. They're going to put what's called a lien. That stuff's not free. They'll put a lien on it. So you may not hear nothing about it. You may think somebody forgot, but what they did was they went down to the county courthouse. They took some paperwork out and they put a lien on your home. And basically, what a lien means is that, hey, if I was, say for instance, a plumber, and I did work on your house, and you decide you weren't going to pay me, I'm not going to get upset. I mean, I could sue you. Of course, I could sue you, but what I will start at first is putting a lien on your home. So if you owe me a
And
thousand
you may
dollars,
not know, you don't get a notice necessarily that you have a lien, or
I don't know if that part happens or not. I would think you should get that part. You should get some sort of notification,
yeah, you
but
can't rely on that. It don't matter if you do. What I'm hearing you say is, it don't matter if you get it if you get a notice or not. It's there.
it's there. It's there. So don't just assume someone is not charging you. If you have someone come to your home and they're collecting your address and they're doing real work, understand if they're licensed and bonded, that's how they're going to get it paid. You know.
Mm.
So when it comes to those liens, that's when it becomes overwhelming. Like, you got liens piling up, you have bills piling up, and like I said, at the end of the day, either A, we can sell the home, get you out of the home, and you can just reset. B, you may need to file bankruptcy and do something different. Or C, like I said, the lighter version, you may just need a couple resources. You may just need some
Yeah.
sort of small loan just to get you over the hump, and you can keep your house. But
Right.
what I'm seeing is letter D. Just don't do anything. Just stay healthy. And
Woo! You're
that
saying
blows my
L.
mind.
People
Yeah,
just
that blows my mind.
that does. Okay, so I'm curious, because it sounds like you said, you've been going to these auctions for quite some time. How often do they have the foreclosure auctions?
It's the first Tuesday of every month. It's at
So
10
once a
o'clock
month.
once a month. That's
Are
it.
the same houses typically on? Do they take a while to sell, or do people come in there and just?
That's a great question. So some of them do. Some of them are repeated. What happens is they'll auction it. They'll bring it up. They'll bring it up for auction. Whoever wants to bid on it. If no one bids on it, they'll try it twice. If no one bids on it, then it just gets put back in the bucket. It'll get sent back to the bank. But then it most likely will come back the following month. So
Mm,
you'll see that. I would say at the end of the day, with these foreclosures, it's like I said, it's just a lot of equity on the table. This is the money you've put into your home on top of what
it's
you
sad.
yeah you're gaining money over time of you living in that house, and I think people forget that. You know
Hmm. Because
that's
they have a renter's mentality
yes.
sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. That's I think that's what it is. And so, you know, that's one thing I want to be. Like I said, I just want to be an advocate. I want to be a educator, motivator, and what I like to host seminars. Whenever I can, whenever I have free time to do that, I go down to the El Paso library downtown. I've
Hmm.
hosted them at the YMCA. I've done a couple different locations, and just like you said, the turnout is small, but I also do youth football coaching, and I tell my young ones, I said, I don't care if there's one person there, 10 people there, or 100 people. I'm gonna give everybody the
That's
same
right.
effort. And so
Because if they, took the time to come get the information, you want to make sure that they, that they are, that you have been of service, and
absolutely,
you definitely are a service. You are a service. Your former service, right, in the military, correct?
yes,
Okay, and is that what brought you here to El Paso?
absolutely. I did 8 years in the military. I was stationed in Fort Bliss for almost 3 to 4 years, and then I got out, met my wife. She's from here, born and raised, and then we ended up staying. And I fell in love with El Paso. I love El Paso. I've been here collectively almost now for 10 years, so I love it. But like I said, and like you said as well, I can see the changes, and it looks great. And I understand that they want more things to come out, but we have to be stewards of the city. We have to understand what's going on in the city, and
Gotta
we
be.
don't want it to be a developer like gold mine. They need to treat us with respect as El
That's
Paso.
right. We need that. We need that. Well, I love that you have these different workshops going on. I do have my newsletter, 5starconversations.com, where people can sign up, and I would love to, make sure that I share some of your things that you have coming up. In the newsletter, as I grow that, I want to be somebody who is here reporting the news and bringing the people's voice to the news, so that, and being a liaison for on behalf of our elected officials, because I'm firmly a believer of, let's try to help rather than try to tear down. I mean, I feel like, what's the point in tearing down, when we can help each other? And I do believe that civic engagement and us being engaged, someone like you who really cares about what you're doing, and how you serve your clients, or potential home buyers, is so important. And so I'm creating this community to have these people like you. I want people like you and I and other people that have come on the podcast who really care about people to be the voice for people, and so that we could have a nice, visible community, that so people can know where they can go to find honest people, because we really do need, I mean, we need that so much.
Absolutely.
When it comes to the auction, how many homes would you say are auctioned a year since you've been attending?
Each month, I'm seeing on average anywhere from 90 to like 120 homes on this particular list. So, not all of them may be presented. They have a certain time to go through each home and in the auction. So, for example, I believe they have to be done by 1 o'clock. So they start this thing, like I said, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they can go all the way to 1. What's crazy is the meat and potatoes of the auction is from 10 o'clock to maybe 12 o'clock. And that's because there's one branded, real branded, marketed, well foreclosure company. That's the thing too. El Paso doesn't, they don't, they have other companies come in to kind of auction these properties off.
That is so, that seems like a big problem too. Like so many big box, companies coming in, which whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like you said, like commerce, it's great to have a mix, but we need to invest in our local people. Like let's invest in the training and upskilling of our local talent. You know what happens when we do invest in train. And I mean, I can't say this for sure, but I have seen some numbers that we've seen because I went to this El Paso Leadership Network, and it seems to be that most people that get educated here leave.
Yes, and that's what's concerning because I mean, you're a graduate from UTEP. UTEP has a lot.
Not graduate yet, but I am going.
Okay.
but I am a minor picks up, but
okay,
we're working on it, brother.
Okay. I spoke it into the future.
That's okay. Yeah, that's right. You're speaking it into existence. That's right. I'm a non-traditional student, which I think is important, and I feel just a quick caveat. We need more experienced, wise people that it's okay to get back in the game later in life. I'm 44 years old. Like, let's use our wisdom. Let's get some, let's utilize the land grant where we can get free. If you haven't made so much money a year, then you can go to school for free. I mean, of course, you still have to cover your other things and you got to figure that out. But like, let's get educated so that we can be leaders. But continue. Yes.
No, and that's what I wanted to speak about. It just simply, we have a lot of great talent here in El Paso, but like you said, they graduate and they leave. UTEP is ranked almost the top in a lot of different programs. But why are we not keeping those students here? We have the military, we have Fort Bliss, a lot of elite leaders from here. How come we can't keep that talent here? That's a problem. So we got to have some sort of bridge to kind of put all this together. And like I said, I see the vision with the city leaders. I see what they want to do. I don't know if they need a consultant. I don't know if they need some sort of other, someone else's expertise on how to figure this piece out, but it's missing in El Paso.
Yeah, I agree. And that was what was so refreshing, even at the commissioner's court meeting. I was very pleasantly surprised that, that they were so open and forthcoming about the mistakes that they've made. I was not expecting to hear that. Do you remember them saying that?
Yes. Yeah. That's one thing about the city, and I would say the county. They're transparent. If you ask them the question, they're going to answer.
Yeah.
I would say that, so it's not like a lot of people can have the sentiment that the El Paso or the county might hide something, but if you don't ask a direct question, you may not get a direct answer. But if you know how to ask it, you're going to get it, or someone's going to give it to you. I've never once not asked a question and someone didn't give me an answer immediately.
See, that's amazing. And so that's why I, highly honor Commissioner Jackie Butler for bringing that to the forefront and saying, hey, we need a best practices. And then for Commissioner Stout to say, hey, we need this for all of our development moving forward. Yeah. Like, and then for the county administrator, I think, and I can't remember her name right now to save my life. I think it's Barb. Ooh, don't get me lying up here. I can't remember her name, but she's like the chief administrator. So I do know that is her role. And what she said was just, I felt so inspired. but inspiration isn't enough, obviously, but we still need to keep going. But what she said is a lot what you're saying. She said, first of all, we need to bring this to the public. The public needs to be involved in this best practices guide. And then she said, and these types of big projects, they said we've made mistakes before when it comes to these things in the past, and they even admitted that they feel like they made a lot of mistakes with Meta. I was surprised to hear that that they would be so forthcoming on that. But they said, and we cannot afford to make these types of mistakes. And then they said we need to. They said, what part of what this needs to include is what you're saying, is an outside consultant. And then the question then becomes, how are we going to vet that person? Like it needs to, we can't let somebody just come and smooth talk us. Yeah. How do we go about these things? So, but the one thing we're going to have to do is just keep asking questions, keep showing up as you've been doing, keep talking to one another, and keep talking to our elected officials. So what I'll do is I will bring, I'm going to be in touch with Commissioner Jackie. I also plan on talking to my local district representative. And so just getting involved on those levels and having these conversations and inviting people to the conversations. And so, seeing you there was amazing. Were you there when they declared Martin Luther King?
I recorded it. Yes, ma'am.
Oh yeah. I was there too, and I thought, you know what? First of all, that was a beautiful, acknowledgement. Judge Samaniego, he really, he and everybody that was there, acknowledged the Martin Luther King Committee, I think is who that was that had kind of like brought that, and they declared January 18th Martin Luther King Day. And I had gotten there just in time, and to see that, and it was great. I'm just, from a black woman to a black man. It was great. That was a great note to walk in on, just to hear them saying how important that we are to the community. And then here we are, two of maybe the 5 or 6 people that were at that meeting. It felt like that really spoke volumes, and it made me realize that our voice does matter. And I want I hope that this also inspires everybody of all races, but also the Black community of El Paso, to know that we do have a voice that is being heard, and it is respected and honored, and we saw that at the court. So we got it. And I say that just to say, like, now this era, it's never been, but now more than ever, is just not the time to make excuses. It's easy to say, oh, they don't care anyways, but that's not the case. I mean, nobody could really say that unless you show up. I think, and it's easy to type. It's easy to be a keyboard warrior on Facebook or Instagram. But are you showing up to these open forums that, when they have them, who's showing up there? And if you're not, you got to ask yourself how much you do really care. And if you do really care, that you should show up. So I say all that to say, thank you so much, Mike, for your time. And thank you for spending this hour with me, coming right out of a very important meeting and being a voice for the people. I truly appreciate you. What would you like? How can people get in touch with you, and who, let the people know who you would like to speak to, like who you want to help the most in this space and time, and how they could get in touch with you, Mike?
The easiest way to get in contact with me is going on my website, MikeClark.ElPasoRealtor.com. All of my social media handles are at the very bottom. I have a resource tab of all the resources out here in El Paso. Once again, I'm a realtor who wants to make sure you are not saying there's nothing to do in El Paso. There's something to do for everyone. You just got to get out there and find it. And I would also say, my message is for anybody who wants to be an advocate, wants to get out and start and speak. I'm not a professional at this. Once again, my full-time job is as a realtor, However, I seen the need. I seen as a kid my father have the need to speak up and go to these city meetings and be a part of some change. So everything counts, like you said. So if that resonates with you, connect with me. If you're looking to buy or sell, of course, that would also be beneficial to connect. And then lastly, even if you're going through foreclosure or going through some sort of housing issue, I may have a resource for you depending on what's going on. So don't always think the option is to sell. So I will never be a realtor who's saying, hey, sell, sell, sell. No, I love El Paso too. I want everybody to stay.
That's beautiful. I truly appreciate that. And I appreciate your heart of care for the community and your heart of service as well. So let's see, one last question. If homeowners currently could take one proactive step right now to stay informed and protected, what would you recommend?
I would say the biggest thing is exemptions. I don't want to go on a tangent about it, but the quick thing you can do is if you own a home, find out if you have an exemption put on your home. If you're living in a primary residence, it's not for business, not for anything else. This is your primary home. You should have what's called a homestead exemption on your home. What I find out, even with the foreclosure homes, even with just door knocking, whatever, and this is all public record. You can look at your neighbor and say, "Hey, neighbor, you've been living in your home for 5, 6 years. I know you live there consistently. It's your primary residence, but I noticed you don't have your homestead exemption on your home. Homestead exemption basically gives you a break on your property taxes, and that's one thing that I could say. Even if you're 65 and older, you get a higher exemption. If you're VA, you get an exemption. If you're 100% disabled, you pay no taxes. But
What?
yes, and if you're
Oh
below
man, I'm gonna
100,
tell my mom this. My mom is a veteran.
yes,
My mom is a veteran, and all the other above. So thank you. That's one we could take to the bank today.
there it goes. There it goes. So if everybody does that, then we'll make sure. And then I would say lastly, when it comes to home ownership, protest your taxes. You're not protesting your taxes to say my house is the cheapest. You're not doing that. You're just trying to make your property taxes manageable for you and everyone around you. If you
Okay,
don't go out to challenge that, then whatever the
they're
county
just
has said,
going.
that's
They're
just
just
what
going
it
to
is.
turn the knob, and they know. So how does one go about protesting their taxes?
So you can go to the Central Appraisal District, go down, speak to them, let them know that, hey, this is my primary residence. They'll let you know what you qualify for, whether it's a homestead exemption, 65 and older. If you just got your house, you have to have an updated address of that house. And then from there you can go. And then I would say for disabled vets, just because you're not 100% disabled doesn't mean you don't get an exemption either. They have a rating system. So if you're 0 to 30%, you get a particular discount, from 30 to 60, and so on. So just go down to Central Appraisal District and find out what you qualify for.
That is such great advice. Thank you so much. Well, this won't be the last time that we speak. I appreciate you. Definitely, you know how to get in touch with me. Anytime
Yes.
you're having an event or anything like that, please send that to LinkedIn. Share it on LinkedIn, but send it to my inbox, and I would love to share that with the community. So thank you so much for your time. Now, people, what I want you to understand, what this young man just shared with us, okay? This is what professionalism looks like when you step outside of your job description and into community leadership. I truly appreciate you for that, Mr. Clark. And what stands out to me is that real advocacy doesn't have to be loud or political. It just has to be informed, respectful, and rooted in care for the people that are effective. And you really just demonstrated that today, and everything that you do. So thank you so much. Everybody who's watching, just let this be a reminder. Your voice matters, especially when decisions are being made about where you live and how our borderland community grows. So this conversation is part of 5-Star Conversations in the Sun City, where we spotlight the people shaping health, healing, leadership, and connection across the borderland. Thank you so much. And Mike, once again, thank you so much for your time, and be blessed, sir.
No, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.